Hi, how are you? Jean, can I get your picture? Yes. You want to stand behind the podium?
Sure.
I could do a whole series of just Jean behind the podium, because I got one of
Move
you
that,
for
move
pretty
that
much
away.
every.
All the forms, yes. I think last, I said like this, maybe?
Very good. It'll be like a flip book, it'll just, everyone will be exactly the same. I'll
Two
tweet just
thousand
instead.
twenty-six, 2025.
Oh,
Oh,
that's kind of exciting.
I think we want just the standard.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, no, let's do disco.
oh, that looks very nice. Oh.
let's see if, that might be blind. It's pretty hot. They're used to it though, right?
Okay, but I got it, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Oh, let's do one more, Jean, sorry.
Okay,
Hang on, I'm gonna wait till he's on there.
okay.
And you're right about the brightness, because I think a couple cycles ago it was so bright that they had to.
Is it a little darker? I can't tell. It looks like it got a little darker.
Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay, we'll try that and see.
We can always adjust.
Okay, thank you. How do you turn it off?
There's just a push button.
I'll probably push it off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
because,
long as you're kind of not talking over it, you should be good.
yeah, it'll depend because what I do is I call on them, so I probably will keep it on.
Yeah, I mean, if you just step back a little bit.
If I have,
Yeah,
I have constant drip all winter long, so I'll
I'm
probably.
with you, I know how that is.
Aside.
Should we have these all turned on and just leave them on?
I would think so,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll go do that.
Probably let them know that their mics are live then.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The mics will be live too. So just-
The whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want to be.
No, that's okay. I'll just be careful when I sit. You guys already need us. Oh, before the snap. I am, yes, I am. This bottle does not want to stand up. I might just lay it down.
Sure. They get any questions? Okay.
Is the light good?
It's not too bad. It's not.
Yeah, it's all right.
It looks,
I wouldn't mind it being a little dimmer, but,
it looks good on camera.
well,
They can see
hopefully
your,
there's not too much glare.
yeah.
Okay, guys, you want to give me a smile here?
All right, we will get started. I want to thank everybody for coming out with the terrible roads for our, I don't even know which one this is. We've done these, a lot of these. So it's our Green Bay Area Public School School Board Candidate Forum for the spring election on April 7th. I want to thank all 4 of our candidates for agreeing to attend. Jean Marsh will be our moderator. And we've got Don and Jean Dahlstrom will be keeping time. Jean will run through all the rules, for the forum, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome everybody. I wanted to thank my league members. I'm Dawn Smith. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay. And it takes a lot of people to make this stuff all work. So thank you to my league members. It's a great organization to be a part of. So thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jean.
Thank you, Dawn. And welcome to our candidates, Laura McCoy, Samantha Meister, Eric Reimer, and Mary Lou Yang. And thank you. The forum is being recorded and live streamed on the League's YouTube channel, and the link will be on the League's Facebook page. Thank you for taking time to attend this forum and become informed about this important election. First, a brief word about the League. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging the informed and active participation of citizens in government. It influences public policy and active participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. League members will take questions from the audience and review and send them to me so that I can present them to our candidates. They will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Similar questions may be consolidated so that we can address as many issues as possible. Questions that are addressed to only one candidate or questions that state an opinion or are not related to this elected office will not be asked. Jean and Don Dahlstrom will be our timekeepers. And prior to the start of the forum, the first person to speak was determined by selecting a number and so on. Candidates will have equal time to share their perspectives. This forum will run for 1.5 hours. So we will begin with opening statements, and I will start with Ms. McCoy.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is it? Okay. Good evening. I want to, of course, thank the League of Women Voters for continuing to offer these forums for school board candidates so that the public can get to know the candidates and make informed decisions when they go to the polls. This is their mission, and they do it very well. This is the 4th time I've done one of these forums, and they are usually the only opportunity that voters have to see all of us together at the same time. And I genuinely look forward to hearing from my fellow candidates. When I started my service on the school board almost 9 years ago, I knew my knowledge of our district was limited, even as a parent with children in the schools. I didn't fully understand the scope of the district, our size, and I knew I had a lot to learn. So I spent most of my first term just increasing my knowledge base and forming relationships with constituents, staff, and families. That investment has been an important part of my ability to navigate the constant changes that are an unavoidable part of public school governance in our current culture and climate. I know the constituents have a lot of questions about our school district and how it functions. I look forward to answering some of those questions here tonight. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mary Lou Yang, and I'm honored to be a candidate for the Green Bay School Board. I chose to run because I believe our district is strongest when those entrusted with decision making truly understand the lived experiences of the families and students we serve. I bring a perspective shaped by listening closely to families, working as a nurse in our community, raising 2 children who attend the schools, a husband who works in the district. So I want to make sure our decisions reflect the needs of our students and families and educators. As the daughter of Hmong refugees from Laos, I carry a deep personal understanding of the barriers many students encounter. My parents did not speak English, and as a child, I often navigated the public education system largely on my own. That experience shaped me profoundly. It taught me that access, clear communication, and strong support systems are not an option. They are essential to student success. I currently serve on various boards, coalitions, and task force in the greater Green Bay. These experiences have deepened my understanding of the structural challenges our district faces and the collaborative solutions required to addressing them. Our children's education and well-being is not a compromise. Every child in our district deserves the opportunity to succeed. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My name is Samantha Meister, and I was appointed to the board in June of 2025. And in the last 10 months in my service on the board, I have used this time to build deeper connections to this district that I have been serving since I moved here 6 years ago. I've been a public educator for the last 20 years, beginning my career as a middle school special education teacher, and then transitioning into a role in higher education, preparing our future teachers for our classrooms. Currently, I am an associate professor at UW Green Bay, where I prepare future teachers to teach literacy and reading in our schools here in Green Bay. I have the distinct honor of partnering with 8 of our schools within the district, which puts me in elementary classrooms and middle school classrooms every single semester to see how our students are thriving within new curricular systems and to engage with our teachers to respond to the increasing challenges put upon them. I'm also a parent of 2 Green Bay Public School children, one who just graduated from West High School this past May, and one who's a freshman at West High School currently. It has been the honor of a lifetime to be in this appointed role for the last 10 months, and I look forward to hopefully having the opportunity to continue to serve all of our children. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Reimer. I'm a retired mechanical engineer. I have no children, but I feel education is such a vital thing for our American democracy. Certainly now, more than ever, it's a vital thing to have. I feel that I have some skill set that I can bring to this. One of my last roles was in the purchasing group at Paper Converting Machine Company, dealing with vendors, contracts, basically getting the best bang for your buck. And I think that's something that's important to bring to this due to the lack of funding that we're experiencing from the state and even the federal government. I think that's a critical aspect of this job. I feel that volunteering for stuff is a very valuable thing to do, and I want to give back to the community. I want to do something to help. I want to do something to make people better and to make our town better. So I'm hoping that I can do that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, candidates. We'll start with our first question, and we'll start with Ms. Yang. How do we create enthusiasm for the schools and build an environment where the community will be willing to allocate more funding for education?
I think it starts with communication. Communication and transparency is super important. I know firsthand because when it came to the school closure discussion back in 2023, there was a huge discussion on families feeling left out, not knowing what was going on in the community. With this, there has been quite an improvement since 2023 with different various ways of communicating, but I feel like the enthusiasm that we bring to our district comes through our students, come through our parents, our staff, as well as the different support members in our community, as well as vetted community organizations. Through these partnerships and strong communication, we will be able to spread that information so people can help pass referendums that's going to support our, keep our lights on, as well as our staff, our programs, everything that keeps our children to thrive. I think that is what is most important.
Can you repeat the very beginning part of that, please?
Certainly. How do we create enthusiasm for the schools and build an environment where the community will be willing to allocate more funding for education?
Thank you. I like the choice of words there, whoever wrote this question, in terms of building enthusiasm. One of the best parts, I think, when the recent superintendent search was, one of the questions was, how do we make Green Bay a destination district? And throughout the process, it was really, really encouraging to hear who we ended up selecting as our candidate say, first and foremost, Green Bay is a destination district. We just need to recognize that. On the state level, Green Bay is the district that people look to when they are making their decisions. And so I think, honestly, as you know, Mary Lou said, I think part of that is better communications and really highlighting the excellent work that we are doing. Our teachers come to work every single day. Our staff members come to work every single day and do incredible things with our students and for our students. So I think part of that is making sure that we are opening up a little bit wider to highlight the incredible work that is happening in our district. I think that in terms of building that support for community support of a referendum, which I know we will have to go to, I think that is, again, just starting those individual conversations, making sure that we are bringing people in, and that is all of the taxpayers within our city and the district as a whole, so that we can get buy-in. And I think that starts with bringing people into our schools, allowing them to see what is happening, and highlighting that excellent work that we have happening.
I will reiterate, I think communication is very important. I agree with Mary Lou on that. And I think it's important that we celebrate the accomplishments of the people that work in the school system, teachers particularly. I think we can do better with promoting the positive aspects of education and trying to communicate with the voters as to why we need the money and where the money's going and why we're not getting the money from the state that we should be getting. I think it's important that we tell them that that's the communication we give, is why do we need the money? Where is it going? And that we're going to be good stewards of that. Communicating with the public is essential to achieving that. I know we are going to have a referendum this fall, and I, like many of you, will vote yes for that because we need this, we need the money. I think it's vital that we get the communication going with people. I really do. I think that's the best way to do this. Thank you.
When it comes to funding our schools and getting enthusiasm around the work that we do, first of all, our Green Bay has been incredibly generous to our school district and has passed several referendums in just the last 10 years, and that has made all the difference in the quality of education in this community. And we've proven that we can tighten our belts and make painful decisions around funding and you know, cutting, consolidating schools and cutting FTEs down at DOB, and you know, just proving that we're good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. And I just want to, something Samantha said really just, I've found this over the years that when I leave Green Bay and go to like the state convention down in Milwaukee, or basically any other community where I'm representing the district in some way, what I find is that people are looking at our district as a leader. They see the work we're doing and the various things we're implementing, and are watching us for guidance and for leadership. When the first time that happened, I was a little bit surprised by that, but now I realize that it's just the way it is, and I really appreciate that. So with regard to enthusiasm, we have some work to do on that, so thank you.
Thank you. Our second question, we'll start with Ms. Meister. Will you make a commitment to maintaining and operating all 4 of the traditional historic high schools?
Yes. Sorry, I don't mean to be flip about that. School consolidations are not a laughing matter, and they're absolutely not a joking matter. I know that throughout the consolidations that have happened at the elementary level, these have been really painful, hard conversations, and opportunities for growth across the board, where I think there are areas that the district absolutely could have done better, as well as, you know, the communications and the timeliness of things was not always our strongest. So I think that we do have work to do in that area, should that be a path that we continue to go down. That being said, I think each of our 4 comprehensive high schools offers something magically unique for their students. The individual and specified programming happening at each of our 4 high schools offers choices to our students. And I do think that that is a critical piece of a district, especially a district of our size, is that we are able to offer those unique pathways for each of our students so that they can find a place where they can thrive. And I would say that that also extends to our alternative programming options as well, such as the John Dewey Academy of Learning and the NEW School of Innovation. I think that we've got really, really, really stellar programming happening and available for our high school students currently, and I'm not interested in removing any of the traditional pathways or the current alternative pathways either.
Yes. Not to coin a phrase, but I think it's important to maintain traditional high schools in neighborhoods that need to have the high school there. I mean, the population requires that we have that. And as long as that continues, there's no reason to consider closing any of the high schools. I agree with Samantha that it was a difficult time when people were talking about closing other schools in the school system, and it was hard for people. It was difficult for parents and children and teachers and staff to understand why we were doing this. I don't foresee any reason to actually close any of the high schools. I don't think that could happen.
Can you ask the question again?
Sure. Will you make a commitment to maintaining and operating all of the traditional historic high schools? All 4?
Yes. My answer is yes. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are already going into our schools, and if there's anybody watching this remotely right now, I encourage you to get into our schools as often as you can with regard to sporting events and drama and music, and see how well maintained they are, and how your referendums have made them safe and have paid tribute to the historic nature of our schools. I have no interest in closing them. We've made huge commitments financially in these schools now, including, like, for instance, the auditorium at West has gotten a huge new upgrade. And it's beautiful, and it's historic, and I can't imagine now closing that school. We have a new stadium there. We have a new stadium at Preble. There's just been this huge influx of upgrading at all of our high schools, and I can't imagine now anytime soon even having a conversation about closing them.
Yes.
Yes, I too. I'm committed to maintaining the traditional high schools as well as the different pathways that we have for our high schoolers. Like Sam had mentioned, the NEW high school pathway, that was an opportunity for kids that probably wasn't there years ago. I talked to a family that when I was door knocking, she was just at a loss of how to get her child to go to the local neighborhood high school. And we talked about the different options that she didn't realize that what Green Bay schools had. And those are things that a lot of our families don't realize. There's different opportunities, different pathways than just even the traditional. But I don't have any interest in closing our traditional high schools. Each high school has such a unique tradition, pride. Each child that goes through the different schools, even if a certain school doesn't fit them and they go to another school, they're able to find themselves with a different education, different friends. It's a unique area that we can't eliminate. The other part I want to add to this is the younger kids in grade school and middle school, they look up and they've already picked out what schools they want to go to. Just as my kiddo, when he was a third grader, he had determined, I'm going to East. And here he is at East instead of Preble.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start this with Mr. Reimer. How can we use AI in the schools to benefit our students?
That's a really good question. I think AI is frightening for a lot of people because they don't fully understand how it can be used. So I think approaching it from that aspect is what can be done with it and what shouldn't be done with it. You hear stories about kids doing research papers by typing in a sentence into ChatGPT and saying, write me a 20-page research paper on this. I think that's absolutely the wrong direction to take with it. It can help, though. It can give input back to someone who's trying to write a paper or do research or to find something online. I think it can be valuable, but it needs to be done in a careful manner. It needs to be done properly.
Ms. McCoy?
I think everyone is grappling with this to some degree, and our district will have to, over time, put policies into place to put some guardrails on how it's used by our students and by our staff. But it's here, people are using it already. I'm even using it a little bit here and there. It's new, but it won't be new for long. It's already quite embedded in how people do their work. And I don't foresee a problem necessarily, but I think we'll have to give a lot of consideration as to how our students might use this tool and when they shouldn't use it as well. That's it.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. How can we use AI in the schools to benefit our students?
So I want to be clear, AI is just a tool. AI is a powerful tool, but we must be careful considering and adopting a tool that can take over our children's learning abilities at the basic and most fundamental piece. We can't have that disrupt the practical learning environment and the learning processes of our students, because critical thinking, problem solving, and celebrating genuine achievements are the foundations of meaningful education. Technology, such as AI, is simply a support. We still have to encourage our children to use their brain power in order to succeed in the real world.
As others up here have said, AI is absolutely a tool, and this is kind of the million-dollar question right now, right? This is something that we're grappling with at the university level as well, so I can say wholeheartedly the importance of clear policy and clear usage guidelines around AI, especially in the classroom, is critically important. When it comes to our students' use of this, I think it's really important that we actually guide our students through how to use AI tools and how to use them ethically. I think that especially given the changes in the workforce right now, AI is a part of many jobs in today's world. There's no escaping it. So I think it would be irresponsible of us to not do some level of learning with our students so that they are prepared for the next steps in the workforce. That being said, kind of to shift to the other side, because this question didn't specify for student usage, I think there are some creative ways that AI tools can be leveraged to make our teachers' life smoother and easier. I work with AI tools with my college students who are going to be teachers on using things like materials creation, not their content, not the substance of what they are doing in their classroom, but to create things like engaging PowerPoint slides, engaging quizzes to quiz over vocabulary for students. So there's ways that our teachers can be using this to simplify their workload and to take something off of their plate that is already exceedingly full.
Thank you. Our next question, and we will start with Ms. McCoy. What role can the school board play in ensuring Green Bay Area Public Schools can hire, train, and retain, emphasis on retain, high-quality teachers at all grade levels?
This is work that is never done. It's a constant challenge to find qualified teachers. You know, as a lot of you know, a lot of people got out of education back during Act 10, and since then we've struggled to find people at all grade levels, to teach at all grade levels. But that doesn't mean we give up, right? So we've done recruitments and all kinds of ways to reach out and to also to grow educators from within. And there's pathways, you know, incentives and all kinds of things for people to get their master's degree. And there's a lot of different ways to encourage people to not only enter into the education profession, but to stay and to thrive. So our district is doing a lot of different things on this area, but I anticipate that it's going to remain a challenge because since Act 10, I mean, it's like the wound that never heals, right? It's really hard for a lot of people to feel positive about a teaching career. So like I said, it's not ever going to be done, and we'll just keep at it.
I think it's important to support our current educators in our schools. Not just our educators, but support staff as well. They are already in our schools, and they have learned, let me rephrase that. They are already a solid foundation for many of our students in the schools. Having that consistency is so important. So we need to strengthen our current educators and support staff that are in our schools to remain that constant piece, the foundation for the students, because that is also support directly for them. I also think that we need to find creative solutions in order to attract teachers in our area or in the surrounding areas. By doing so, one example can be finding somebody that is interested at the higher education level of NWTC or our local UWGBs, be able to teach maybe some part-time classes. Now, this is also an opportunity for them to learn their skills as a teacher as well, as that's something they want to continue. But also, too, students they enjoy learning from individuals that have expertise in different areas, because students are so intelligent. They know when somebody's being genuine and excited about a certain topic. And this is something we want to continue in our students, is excitement in learning and growing.
I think this is a really multi-pronged approach here. When it comes to hiring and then training high-quality teachers, I think the important thing to remember is, that strong foundation that happens in teacher education programs is huge. I would also say that I think our district is doing a nice job currently of being creative with solutions, like Laura said, to elevate those from within our schools. I know that we've had some really, really strong work around associate's degree attainment for some of our paraprofessionals through NWTC. I personally have taught now in 2 cohorts worth of folks who are working to get their master's degrees, who are working as paraprofessionals or full classroom teachers in our schools. This current cohort that I'm working with is an entire course of bilingual educators, which we know is a critical need area in our schools. So I have the huge privilege of being able to teach a group of folks who already have licenses in other areas, already have multiple degrees from their home countries, and are just basically jumping the hoops here to get licensed in the States in order to best serve our students. I think making sure that we're working to build a teaching force that more accurately reflects our student population is huge. And that is a huge piece of this work in terms of making sure that we're certifying bilingual educators, making sure that we're growing from within our own communities, and getting students in high school excited about going into the teaching profession.
I'm looking at this from my own experience with education in public schools and with my parents. My parents were both teachers. And they did it because they loved teaching. They wanted to make a difference in the lives of their students. That wasn't always celebrated. It wasn't always encouraged, whether it was financially or in other ways of supporting them. I think it's vital that we do that. We need to encourage that when we find it in, as Samantha said, students in the higher education area of education. If they're that enthusiastic about it, they should want to do this and love doing it, and we should be rewarding them substantially for that, whether it's financial or other ways that we can reward them for it. I think teaching is one of the noblest professions in the universe, and it should not be cheated. It should be as respected as anything else in this country. Unfortunately, that doesn't always work out that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Yang. Many students will find success in teaching medicine, law, and parenting. How could the schools reduce the number of students who end up homeless, in jail and rehab, or in domestic abuse shelters, or being employed in the scam industry?
I think it's important that we address different behaviors and red flags at the school level. When we talk about ensuring that they stay out of jail, going down that pathway, I think it's important that we recognize the different red flags that we see in the schools. Be able to refer them into areas that can help with the corrective actions in that way. Now, I strongly believe that students, they have the capacity to understand up to a certain point of trying something over and over again until they can get it right. And sometimes behavior is right where that is. Being a part of a group that had initiated anti-bullying initiatives, we recognize that behaviors are simply just a behavior, that bullying is just a behavior, and that if we can curb that behavior, it will not grow into their character. And so that is one way that we can help students not get themselves in a position where they find themselves in jail or they find themselves in trouble.
I think this comes down to a few areas here. First and foremost, as a school district, I think we need a really strong commitment to building foundational academic skills within our students, especially within our elementary age students. That doesn't mean that we're discarding our middle and high school folks, but building foundational skills specifically within the area of literacy ensures that our students have access to pathways going forward. Some of the work that's been done around in instituting the new curricular changes as a result of Act 20 at the state level and making sure that we are working to address very foundational literacy skills, I think have been really helpful. I think in partnership with building that foundational academic level, though, is really, really, really intentionally and actively building those social emotional learning skills as well. Making sure that we are teaching interpersonal skills actively and making sure that we've got the strong access to mental health professionals in our schools, which I know our district has been doing an excellent job of, making sure that we have licensed counselors and folks in our schools that students can turn to. That is an area of critical need that I think we absolutely need to continue to support, or funding that support. I think it is a multi-pronged approach, and ultimately, like I said, I think that our job as a school district is to arm our students with those skills to go out into the world.
I agree with what has been said so far, but I'd like to emphasize early intervention in this. I think the sooner you identify whatever the behavioral issue is that a student is having, the better you're going to be able to help them cope with it, whatever that happens to be. I think that it's important that we do build literacy, because being able to read is one of the keys to gaining a good education. And without that skill, frustration comes up. A kid's going to get frustrated because he can't keep up. They can't read at the same level as other kids in their class. And they may start to fall behind because of that. So I agree. I think literacy is a vital thing to do that. I think the social interaction aspect of it is very important. You need to teach kids that certain behaviors are not going to be acceptable at an early age, and that should help with some of that. There you go.
I think when we talk about children who are struggling in the ways that the question is asking, we're really talking about not just what we can do as a school district, but what we can do as a community. And one of the things that has really helped me with my work on the school board is I also sit on the Human Services Board for Brown County, where we get regular updates on what the county is doing with regard to services for children of all ages and families in crisis. I've also attended, graduation services out at the Juvenile Detention Center, and try to make that a celebratory event for those young people who are incarcerated. But again, I think that the key is not just what we do as a district, but what we do as a community. And I believe that a lot of why a lot of these children are at risk is actually grounded in what is happening in their family. And so behavior around, whatever kind of behavior we might be talking about, to what extreme, the foundation is in the family, and it has to start there. The changes have to start there. School districts can manage it and offer services and mental health services as well, but this is a community problem and not, I think, just a school district problem.
Our next question, we will start with Ms. Meister. How will you meet the needs and expectations of those who may not look like you or whom politically don't align on some major issues?
think step one is listening more than we talk, and being open to truths that may not resonate with me. I have my own lived experiences. That's it. I cannot speak for the lived experiences of others. I cannot assume the lived experiences of others. I can only listen to those who engage. I can reach out. I can work to build those community connections and to invite people into our schools and to invite people into spaces with our schools where they may have traditionally not felt safe or welcomed. I think that it's important to find common ground in all of our interactions. I would say that that's critically important right now when everything feels extremely polarized. And ultimately, within the Green Bay School District, we all, for the most part, show up for our schools. The community has been incredibly generous and incredibly supportive, and even folks who are sometimes some naysayers, they ultimately show up and support our public schools. So ultimately, if we can all agree that our children are worth it and deserve it, I think that we can find that common ground.
I would also emphasize listening as in active listening, which is a skill that requires a little bit of thought and effort. I think it's important to listen to other people's experiences and actually hear what they say to you. We all do have our own experiences. I've got 68 years of experiences, so it's quite a bit there. I think it's very important to understand that there's a level of common that we all have certain things that are the same, regardless of any differences that society might want to label us with. And I think it's important to reach those and to give those to our children so that they know that they're not alone, that there are other kids out there that see things the way they see things and experience things the way they experience things. I think that's one way that we can work together to do this.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. How will you meet the needs and expectations of those who may not look like you or whom politically don't align on some major issues?
Well, that is a pretty common occurrence when you're on the school board, hearing from the public, hearing from parents, hearing from students. I wish we actually heard more from parents and students. And I have kept an open mind over the years to whatever people want to bring to me to discuss, to complain about, and to lift up. So I keep an open mind, and like we all have said, listen. That's part of the job. And there's really no reason why an elected official shouldn't be listening to people that are their constituents. I do struggle sometimes with that, especially when people say negative things about our kids. I want to, put labels on them in some way. That does challenge me and my patience. I have a hard time sometimes when people talk about teachers in a negative way, which is not an uncommon thing, unfortunately. And I have to bite my tongue a little bit, but I have to then also come back to the fact that I am elected by everybody in this community, and therefore it is my job and my duty to listen and do what I can to affect change if possible.
So I agree with everybody up here, when they talk about different lived experiences. And I mention that because currently, from last year's report card, Green Bay report card for 2024 to 2025, we currently have 64.4% non-white students in our schools. Lived experience matters, especially on the school board. And I bring that perspective out because I am a firstborn generation in the United States. I did go to public schools trying to navigate being the proficient English speaker in my family, translated since I was in 3rd grade, having these different experiences, these struggles, being born into poverty, overcoming that, finding education as the only opportunity to succeed, having kids of my own now, trying to find ways to make sure that they succeed, and realizing that navigating the school system is not an easy thing to do. When you don't have access, you don't have the language, you don't have the communication, you're not sure where to go for that. I bring that point out because lived experience is so important. Listening is important. Finding the common ground in being able to share the different aspects of our lives is important. Celebrating the differences. That is how we get to know each other and the greater world outside of us. Because when we leave Wisconsin, when we leave Green Bay, Wisconsin, it's not, this is not exactly everything that's out there. So bringing those diversities, those diverse experiences are more important than ever.
The next question, we'll start with Mr. Reimer. As budgets get tighter, how will you communicate with the community and preserve pathways such as arts, STEM, et cetera, that families choice into the district for?
Well, once again, I think communication is one of the most important things that a member of the school board can do. I think we need to be explaining to people where the money that they're giving us goes and why it's going there. And also explaining to them that we're struggling because we don't have the full funding that we should have in this state. And making sure that they understand that the school board doesn't legislate funding. That's the state level government that does that. And making people understand that if you really want to support education, you need to start voting for people that will support education in this state. I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do. As far as communicating what we do with the money, I think there was an open house at Southwest a few weeks ago where the superintendent and members of the school board support staff gave an excellent presentation on what the struggle was and where the money was going and why it wasn't enough to take care of everything that we needed to do. I think funding for arts and STEM and other programs are vital. We should be reaching out to parts of the community that can help us fund that, whether it's businesses or private investment or private donations that want to give money to that. I think that would be important to do that.
I'm sorry, please repeat it again.
Sure. As budgets get tighter, how will you communicate with the community and preserve pathways such as arts, STEM, et cetera, that families choice into the district for?
Yes, we are going currently through a very difficult period with regard to funding education. And this is a subject that is, I don't know what the solution is, because the solution isn't really something that we have a lot of control over. It is a political solution. And it rests with the people who make decisions on behalf of public education down in Madison. And if you pay attention to what's going down in Madison, it's pretty hard to see that and not feel discouraged. So, but in our district, it is our job to be fiscally responsible and to preserve what we can. But we're heading into we have cut so much already that the next round of cuts are going to be particularly painful. And I've kind of lost track of how many times I've been in rooms with elected officials and begged them to care about public education. Many, many, many times in the last 9 years, I have been in a room at an event or something where the discussion of how we fund public education has come up, and nothing ever seems to change. So we need to keep at this, and we will do the best we can with the resources that we have.
Ms. Yang?
Can you repeat the question? I just
Sure.
want to make sure I'm
Sure.
hearing it right.
As budgets get tighter, how will you communicate with the community and preserve pathways such as arts, STEM, et cetera, that families choice into the district for?
So right now, the board members currently are discussing cuts. Discussing cuts, and that was just presented, less than 2 weeks ago, of some of the things that may be on the chopping block. I think what is really important here is the students showing and displaying the different activities they're part of. We had students that were part of the United Swim Team, and they had come out and talked about how special the pools were for our board members to not close the pools. We have so many different opportunities that we need to preserve, but we also need to be able to advertise in our school district these different programs that students may gain interest in, and they just don't know about it. These are programs that are probably dying, that are going to be on the chopping block. But when programs get eliminated, we know the chances of that coming back are going to be slim. And we cannot risk our music programs, our swim teams, all avid higher education opportunities. We cannot risk those getting cut because the chances of those coming back are going to be slim. We need to connect with the community partners to help support those people in those special areas, so that way they can help encourage those areas with funding.
As a few of the other folks up here have mentioned, we are in a moment right now of extremely dire financial straits. And quite honestly, I think a lot of this does come back to, we need to do a better job of educating our community at a fundamental level, basically how this funding structure works, so that we can make sure we're electing people to Madison who are making good choices to support public education. That means going to neighborhood association meetings, making sure we're going out into faith-based communities, hosting open houses in our school buildings so that community members are able to come into our schools and see the work that their referendum dollars are doing and have done in the past to upgrade our facilities. But that being said, we cannot cut our way to excellence. We can't. And ultimately, as a board member presented with the list of items 2 weeks ago, we could quite literally cut every single item on the list, and it will not equal the deficit that we're facing. Every single item on that list could be cut, and we wouldn't meet our deficit unless we choose to not offer a cost of living increase to our teachers and to freeze their increases on steps again. So our choices now are to either gut all of the programming that makes us excellent and exceptional, or to shortchange the people that are making magic happen in our buildings every day.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. McCoy. How often will you be in school buildings to talk to teachers and students?
Well, that's the best part of this job. As often as possible would be the short answer. I mean, it's a joy to walk through our schools. I mean, you walk into any of our schools and you will see teachers teaching and children learning, and safe, clean, and stimulating buildings. And again, I thank the community for passing referendums that allow us to do that work, because again, we will not get that funding from the state. It has to be done locally. So yes, I love going into schools, and in any kind of capacity, it might be a performance, it might be a sporting event, it might just be I've been invited by a teacher to come and observe their classroom, and I particularly love going into the elementary schools with the little tiny kids and see their enthusiasm and energy. But I like all of our schools, frankly, and I love to listen to teachers and hear from them, and I do hear from them on a pretty regular basis about what they're lives are like, what is happening in their profession, and how they feel about, how they spend their energy, time, and resources. So, yeah, it's the best part of the job, like I said.
I currently have a 4K and a high schooler, so I'm always in the schools. I've been a part of parent networks, I've PTOs, sporting events, as well as, I'm hoping, future music, but I'm always at the school, always talking to teachers, always talking to kids, always talking to parents, because I am also a vetted, strong volunteer at the schools. Even though I don't work the schools, I think it's so important that parents do play a role and help support as much as they can, especially when their children are there and they will be there. So I am always at the schools. Another part of that too is when we had an anti-bullying campaign, and I reflect back to this a lot because we went into the schools and we talked to the students and collected a survey of how they felt on the anti-bullying piece and how to be able to identify that and support a friend. We went in, we talked to the students. Being able to encourage them to speak up was such a powerful thing because some students don't realize that there's so many people out there that care for them. They just have to reach out. And so that is another aspect that I do outside of my work as a professional as a nurse. I do parent-child engagements, so I'm constantly promoting and talking to kids and parents and teachers.
I would say on average, I'm in the schools 3 times a week. This is an average. There's obviously some weeks for my day job at UWGB where I'm out observing my students, so I'm out there pretty much 5 days a week in our elementary and middle school classrooms, supervising my field-based students and then connecting with their host teachers and building administration to make sure that our college students are bringing their best and navigating any issues and coaching and guidance that they may need to become better future teachers. And as it's been mentioned, that ranges from being in classrooms, observing teachers doing what they do. I've offered a lot of support in terms of literacy curriculum as teachers have been adjusting to the new ways of teaching our reading curriculum for our elementary and middle school students. Additionally, I always love, it is the best part of the job to go to all of the musicals, the concerts, the different holiday events. I got to be a guest judge at the Aldo, they do the SimCity sort of situation where their 8th graders get to plan projects and then get funding to create games for their students, so I got to be a guest judge at that. This is truly the highlight of the work, so I would say, like I said, my average is about 3 times a week, and that's a goal that I try to keep myself to. Obviously, the last month has not been my best with the superintendent search, but I've still been out there 1 to 2 times.
Well, I'm retired, so I have plenty of time. And I look forward to spending as much time as possible in every one of the schools in this district. I'm new to this, and I need to learn. I need to learn a lot about what happens in the schools and how things work in those schools. So the only way to do that is to be there and to talk to the students, the staff, the teachers, always the teachers. I think it's just something that I'm really looking forward to doing. That's, as everybody else has said, that's got to be the best part of the job. You can't do too much of that. I think it's going to depend on how much time my dog and my wife are willing to let me be away from the house, but as much as possible would be my answer.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Ms. Yang. How do coaches develop a culture of successful athletic achievement? And when should young students be exposed to the possibility of athletic scholarships and NCAA participation?
I think it's important for our coaches to really encourage accountability. Because sports are a pathway for students to learn how to work together. And through that is through accountability and being able to discover oneself and their abilities to independence and through helping one another. Accountability is so important. The other piece of that question was about NCAA
Yes, and scholarships.
and scholarships. I think that after 8th grade, the summer of 8th grade to freshman year, that is an opportunity for some students to learn more about scholarships. We have children, even at the middle school level, that are super talented, that are even getting scouted to go to a different school to play for them. And I speak on that because I've seen that. Appleton recruited one of our Green Bay kids. But with that being said, scholarships is an opportunity for some of these kiddos to seek higher education, to find themselves in a position that they never would have been able to. I do think we have to be careful, though, that likability in that piece could be uncharted territories, that we need to be able to continue protecting our kids from individuals that may not truly have good intentions.
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. How do coaches develop a culture of successful athletic achievement? And when should young students be exposed to the possibility of athletic scholarships and NCAA participation?
All right. I think what this comes down to is developing our coaches to really empower our students to build those skills such as persistence, teamwork, yes, skills in whatever their athletic or sport is of choice, but also to really work on building those interpersonal connections with our kids. I think the value of sports, whether they're team sports or individual sports, allows our students to develop that capacity to push themselves maybe further than they might have otherwise. And it shows the value of really hard work and dedication to make sure that, you know, you're able to reach those challenging goals. I think that it's a balance, obviously, of maintaining the ultimate goal. If that goal is to receive some sort of athletic scholarship for higher education opportunities, I think that that's a high school conversation. I would say that also, though, that development up to that point should be focused on developing those kind of interpersonal and soft skills when it comes to persistence and teamwork and hard work and the value of accountability and showing up and responsibility. And just, those are skills that all of our students can transfer with them out of athletics into, whether that's a job, whether that's higher ed, whether that's into, you know, interpersonal relationships. Those are things that absolutely can develop that inner core of their character as well.
I think team sports is one of the best places that students can learn cooperation, humility, and the chance for success someplace other than in a classroom. I think it's great that we have that. I think that it needs to be balanced with academic requirements, because the NCAA is not going to come looking for you if you can't read. So you need to be able to do that too. I think it's vital that we balance both of those. As far as when you could start having conversations with a student about the possibility of a scholarship, I think that's somewhat dependent on the student themselves and their level of achievement in whatever sport they're in. And I think it's important to have the parents as a key portion of that conversation. They need to be present. They need to understand what the reality of that situation is and what it can do for their student. But I wouldn't think that anything before high school would really be appropriate. Kids aren't really that well versed in athletics until they're into a high school setting, I don't think.
there's a lot of pressure for kids of all ages to be athletes and to perform at all at a high level, and sometimes from a very young age. And I have very mixed feelings about that. I'd rather have us be putting an emphasis on academic achievement. But as a parent who's actually navigated this with one of my kids who turned out kind of unexpectedly to be a gifted athlete, we were kind of surprised by that. But then we had to help her get to college and navigate scholarships and all of that. But again, there's a lot of pressure. Coaches play a huge role in that. We all know that. And a good coach is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. It makes me think of this last fall, I was invited to attend at West High School a kind of introductory event for girls who wanted to wrestle. And so I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I went to West, and I went into this room of girls of all ages, little tiny ones and older girls in high school, where they were learning how to wrestle and determining whether or not they would like to be more involved in that. And so I got to observe that, and I got to observe parents observing that as well. And it was really interesting, and I came out of there feeling really positive about that. And I don't know, how those girls did. I don't know what their season was like, but I was rooting for them when I left that room. So, but the coach was excellent, and he made all the difference.
Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Meister. What is your view on the size of central office administration in our district, and where would you prioritize central office when it comes to budget cuts?
I know that this is a pretty hot topic, especially given all of the conversation around the budget right now. I would say that I appreciate the ongoing work that our central office has done in order to make sure that we have an adequate and accurate staffing audit that has been done. I think that ultimately, is there room to continue to fine tune that? Probably yes. I would say, though, that in a district of our size, when you're serving 18,000 students and supporting over 3,500 staff members, there are just some areas where we need extra positions in that space, right? We need additional layers between our classroom teachers and that space to make sure that our curriculum is being delivered in a way that is making sense for all of our students. We need supports for our multilingual learners, and that requires a department of people to do that, to ensure that those services are being done equitably across our entire district. We need a department of folks in special education to ensure that our federal responsibility is being met by every single school within our district. So is there room for ongoing evaluation to make sure that we're at a right size at central office? Absolutely. I think that's responsible for any organization. But I do think that some of the kind of backlash around central office isn't necessarily appropriate at times, because a district of our size really does require a large level of management.
My experience is with engineering firms, not with education. And I've witnessed downsizing and cutbacks and position eliminations and not filling positions when someone retires or moves to a different job. And I've seen the damage that can do in the structure that holds up the rest of the company. And if I'm hearing this correctly, I believe that that's what we're looking at with the central office, is that's the framework that holds up the rest of the school district. It supplies the needed support and meets the requirements that the staff needs. I'm not a big fan of cutting any positions. I think there are responsible ways to look at that, and given the nature of the budgetary crisis that we face, I think that could be something that has to happen. I would be very, very hesitant to offer any idea of reducing staff at all.
district office building and the people that do the work there are working on behalf of our district and the children we serve. And I don't like to hear very much about people who don't value that work, because I see it every day and I know it's important and necessary work. But they get a bad rap. We did just do a staffing audit and found that, that there's a lot to consider when you talk about cutting positions. First of all, we have a lot of unfunded mandates, and there's people that have to do that work, but they're not funded. We're constantly struggling with insufficient and insufficient funding. So the overriding thing that I think we have to think about long-term is just having flexibility. We can cut so many, and then, but the enrollment trends can change, and then now we have to have more people to support the work. We are one of the largest employers in this area. I think like the second largest employer. Supporting 39 schools right now, and about 3,500 employees takes a large amount of support. And I often, I ask people, like, what do you think we should cut? Should we cut security? Should we cut finance? Most of the people that work at the district office building are deployed out into the district every day. They're in schools. So anyway, there's a lot to think about.
So I'm a Green Bay parent, Green Bay school parent. I don't know what they do at the district office building. I'm going to be honest. I don't. Because I am at the schools with the children. I have a husband who's a support staff at the schools, but I really don't know what they do at the district office building as a parent of the Green Bay schools. I'm going to be honest. If we're going to start cutting, that is where I'm going to cut first. I'm going to be very honest, and that's not easy to say. I say that because I strongly believe we cannot touch those support programs for the kiddos. We cannot be cutting programs that are affecting our kids, our teachers, things that are going to help encourage the kids to pathways that they are having opportunities right now. Now, I don't say that lightly. I really don't say that lightly. But when I say cut, I don't mean cut staffing. I mean the building. Because I don't know what we do at the district office building. We should have staff at the district office building in our schools. Why do we need a building?
Our next question, and we'll start with Mr. Reimer. Another referendum was sustained. What is an acceptable property tax increase related to the referendum?
Well, as someone who pays taxes in Green Bay, and to those of you that do pay taxes in Green Bay, you saw on your last property tax bill that came through the almost $10 million that goes to voucher schools out of your tax dollars. So, to be blunt, I don't want to pay any more property taxes until that's taken care of. However, referendums are a necessary thing that we have to do to fund our public schools, because we don't have the political will in Madison to do the right thing and actually fund schools the way the Constitution of the state tells them that they're supposed to. So I've voted yes for every referendum that's ever come across on any ballot in the 40-some years I've lived in Green Bay. And I'll continue to do that because I think it's important that we support public education, vital that we support public education. But there is no such thing as a reasonable increase when the state government does not fund us properly.
Yes.
hopefully there won't be any tax increase from the school district's point of view. Mostly when people's taxes increase, it's because the value of their property has increased. But from the school district's point of view, we've been really careful about keeping the mill rate level. In fact, it's been going down slightly. And we've been good at managing the debt that we do have by paying it off early, thereby saving a lot of interest payments, and then passing a referendum, and that old debt drops off, and then we replace it with the new referendum debt. And if you can keep that cycle going, you can fund what you need to fund for your district, make the changes you need to make, and not have the school district be the cause of your taxes going up. We've managed to do that pretty well for the last, decade or so. And I hope that with this next referendum, that will be the case as well. When it comes to funding public education and what we do locally, again, it's so incredibly dependent on what happens in Madison. And it's very much out of our hands a lot of the time. So that's it.
Could you repeat it?
Yes. Another referendum was maintained. What is acceptable property tax increase related to the referendum?
So I'm going to be honest, I'm not familiar with the budget formula. I have the basic understanding that our school funding basically comes from tax dollars and property tax. That's what our budget is per pupil. So I know that we had a property tax increase recently. My property tax went up. I'm a homeowner, so I'm very aware of that. But I think that it's still very important that our schools share and communicate with the community our referendums that we want to present. Realistic operational things that we want to do in our district here. From my understanding, next year we'll be using up the rest of the $16.5 million referendum dollars that we had from 9-10 years ago. And that is something that we've been using up until this time. We're going to be facing the next school board, if elected as a school board member. It's going to be a huge responsibility to make sure the community understands the decisions that we're going to be making at that level that may or may not increase property tax.
I think especially in the last couple of referendum cycles, the district has done a really nice job of making sure that they are minimizing their asks to ensure that property tax impact is as low as possible to our community members. Going forward, I would agree that we are being very creative in how we shape the language around the referendum ask to ensure that that impact is minimized for our taxpayers. As Laura said, I think the historic tax increases had more to do with everyone's property values being reassessed and jumping massively because that hadn't been done in a number of years. But I do think, going forward, it's important for us as the board to ensure that we are being extremely transparent about what we're asking for, why we're asking for it, and where that money is going to. So again, this means, getting out into the community, meeting with everyone who is willing to listen and some who might not be willing to listen, to ensure that we can get everyone on board to fund our schools equitably for our students, because our state is absolutely refusing to do so. Just again, to shout out, I'm very, very grateful that the voucher payments is on our tax bills now, so that our community members are able to see that the $14 million from our community is paying out to voucher schools. And I think that that's something that, from an education perspective, we should get everyone a lot more angry about.
I'd like to go with one more question before the final comments. We might run a little bit over, but we'll start with Ms. McCoy. How would you assess the way in which the board has functioned in recent years in regards to their activism, engagement, and effectiveness? And what would you do differently, or how would you plan to operate?
I think our board members are all very different people, and they engage in different ways according to their time restraints and their interest in activism. I came onto the board almost 9 years ago, and I had no inkling about how much time I would spend in an activist mode to support our school district. I have been to Madison, I've been before the Joint Finance Committee several times, I have been to Washington, D.C., I've lobbied our local electeds, I've done a lot of different things, and you could probably call that activism, but for me it's just like part of the job to inform people about what's going on in their school district, and to go to the people who hold the pull the levers of power and tell them, we need more from you, we need a lot more from you, why aren't you supporting public education? So yes, I guess that's activism, and we all do that to some degree. But it kind of goes with the territory now, because our public education is under attack in so many ways that you pretty much have to be an activist in some way. And I hope the public understands that is kind of part of the gig now.
I think the board has been doing a decent job at engaging with the community. But if I was to be elected as a board member, I would do more. Because as I mentioned in my opening statement, access, clear communication, and strong support are needed. As a board member, that is still something that board members should do, they should hold. They are elected officials that when somebody does send them an email, somebody does reach out to them in the community, or if they're simply attending an event, should address their constituents. I think that engagement is important because sometimes people are reaching out to you because they are at their wit's end of what to do and how to support their child or themselves. Advocacy, Lori had mentioned about advocacy. I think that the board should also participate in different opportunities that are in the area. For example, I had the opportunity to sit on the Brown County Truancy Attendance Task Force. This was a huge eye-opener that was trying to figure out how to get kids to attend school, why they're avoiding school, and if they ever meet the opportunity of having to face a fine due to truancy, how can we help the child and the parents understand to attend these court hearings. There's a lot of different ways the board members can engage, and that is one opportunity that can continue supporting our schools.
I think our current board, while all being very unique individuals, has functioned pretty effectively as a group. Now, I've only been there for the last 10 months, but I think the superintendent search is a great example of this, how with a variety of perspectives we were able to come together and listen to one another and deliberate through all of our candidates, all of their responses. And so I think that that's just an example that the board is functioning internally really nicely together, and we don't agree on everything. I think that's very clear in our votes and how they land often. But in terms of engagement, I do think that each of us individually engages in the ways that probably we're able to at this point. I think that's always an area for growth, and I think that each of us can continue to be committed to engaging with our community in a more purposeful and intentional way. In terms of the activism piece of it, this is an area that I continue to look forward to. In my professional life at UWGB as well. I've done a lot of activist work around specifically the literacy law and Act 20. I've been in the room with legislators while that was being written. I was giving expert feedback. I was working to make it as palatable to our teachers and staff as possible so that they weren't overburdened with work upon its implementation. And I think that moving forward, it's critical that we continue to do things within that activism lens when it comes to school funding, when it comes to our academics, when it comes to all of our behavioral and social emotional learning skills as well for our students.
I think the example I can give for how well our current board functions revolves around the new superintendent that they picked. I met Mike Hernandez. I liked Mike Hernandez. I think he was an excellent candidate. I think it reflects well upon the board that he's the person that they chose to lead our school district. As far as activism and engagement goes, I think they're connected. Activism is reaching out to the community, to elected officials, to anyone that you can touch that will give something back for what you need. And I think that engenders engagement by communicating those requirements to the people that you're talking to. I think we get engagement with the community and with our elected officials by activism.
It's time now for candidates to make their closing statements, and you'll have a minute and a half, and we'll start with Ms. Yang.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, and for the viewers who are watching tonight. I humbly ask you to vote for Mary Lou Yang on Tuesday, April 7th, to be your next Green Bay School Board member. Someone who understands the daily realities of the students' needs and struggles. I have a husband who works for the district and 2 children who attend our schools. I'm not afraid to use my voice to advocate for students, families, and educators. I will bring a perspective shaped by lived experience and supporting families in our areas, as I currently do in my volunteering time. If elected, I will focus on 3 guiding priorities: advancing student success, ensuring transparent and accountable leadership, and making responsible, data-driven investments and produce measurable outcomes. I'm committed to addressing disparities, closing achievement gaps, and strengthening partnerships with families and trusted community organizations. I'm running because I deeply care about our district and the students who walk through our halls every day. It would be a privilege to serve alongside our community to build schools where every student feels safe, supported, and empowered to thrive. Every child in our district deserves the opportunity to succeed. On Tuesday, April 7th, vote for who? Mary Lou.
Thank you to the League for organizing the event this evening. It's been a wonderful opportunity to have all 4 of us here to respond to your questions. I have dedicated my life personally and professionally for the last 20 years to supporting our public education and our public schools. Whether that has been as a teacher, a special education teacher in a large urban district, or as a teacher educator preparing teachers for large urban districts. I believe that I bring the expertise and the experience to continue to move our large urban district forward. I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve in this role. It has, like I said at the beginning, been the honor of a lifetime to be in this role for the last 10 months, and I know that we have a lot of work to still do. So I look forward to making sure that we can onboard a new superintendent in purposeful, intentional ways that support him in being successful here in Green Bay, but also that shows him the incredible work that's already happening in our schools. I look forward to committing to making sure that our strategic plan goals for academics, our thriving workforce, and our thriving student body, and our family engagement focus is being actualized in a way that supports all those involved. And ultimately, I'm running because I feel that public education is the core of our democracy. Our students deserve this, our families deserve it, our community deserves it, and I hope to earn your vote on or before April 7th. Thank you.
I would echo the thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. I think that's a fantastic thing that you're doing. I seem to be the odd person out here. I'm not an educator. I don't have children in the school district. I'm new to this. I have a different experience in my life, in my career, working in engineering fields. I do have experience dealing with finances and dealing with being accountable for what you spend and why you spent it. And I think given the nature of the situation we find ourselves in, I think that's extremely important to do that. I think I can bring something different to this school board that is an outside of the educational experience opinion. I hope that you see that. I hope that you'll choose me as a representative of everyone in this district on April 7th. Thank you.
I too want to thank the League of Women Voters for their commitment to helping voters make informed decisions. And I want to thank my fellow candidates for stepping up to run for an office that is often very challenging, misunderstood, but deeply rewarding. If my time on the board comes to an end, you will have my complete support. Since the beginning of my time on the school board, change has been a constant. I could have never anticipated leading through a pandemic and the toll that would take on communities across this country. I could have never anticipated having to consolidate schools and the painful large-scale changes that went with that process. But we adapted, we worked together, we learned a lot of hard lessons. We all had to learn those hard lessons together. One very important thing that I have learned, that if you want to serve on a school board in Wisconsin, you'd better be prepared to become a defender of public education. Our public schools are under attack from many directions, and it takes grit, stamina, and a firm belief that all means all. We educate all children, no matter how they come to us. More than ever, I believe in public education. That is my commitment to this community, and I humbly ask for your vote on April 7th.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay, I'd like to close by thanking our candidates, Laura McCoy, Mary Lou Yang, Samantha Meister, and Eric Reimer, for your participation in this democratic process and sharing your positions and perspectives with us. And to our audience for your attending the forum and for submitting your thoughtful questions. I'd like to extend our thanks to President of our league, Dawn Smith, for coordinating the forum, and for our timekeepers, Don and Jean Dahlstrom. Thank you to Will Casper of AVM for recording the forum. As a reminder, this recording will be available on the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay Facebook page. And you can also view local candidate videos that were submitted on our Facebook page. Be sure to check that out. Please remember to vote on or before Tuesday, April 7th. You can vote in advance, by absentee, or in person. This ends the school board forum brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay. Have a good evening and safe travels home.